stuff. So there's 3 theorems here. And then we're going to go through, if we can conclude they are what we think they are, after we go over what these theorems say for us. All right, so theorem 616, you don't need to memorize the number, right? It's just saying the 16th theorem that we've learned in chapter 6. Lots of theorems in chapter 6. But here's what it says. Are you ready? Are you not playing games? Yeah, no answer is not a good sign. Okay. It says if the diagonals of a parallelogram are perpendicular, okay? If your diagonals are perpendicular, meaning, remember, perpendicular is a right angle. If your diagonals are perpendicular, then what kind of parallelogram do you suppose it is?
The middle one.
A rhombus, right? Then the parallelogram is a rhombus. So if the diagonals are perpendicular in a parallelogram, it must be a rhombus. Now it can be more specific. It can be a square, right? A square is a rhombus, but it has to be a rhombus if the diagonals of a parallelogram are perpendicular, okay? That's the first one. The second one says if the diagonals of a parallelogram bisect a pair of opposite angles, then the parallelogram is a blank. It's not a rectangle.
Square. A rhombus again.
It's a rhombus again, right? Remember the theorems we learned about rhombuses? It bisects a pair of angles and it has perpendicular diagonals. So they're just saying it a different way now. They're saying the converse. So this is another rhombus. Okay. Then there's theorem 618. Stop and think about this one before you give me an answer. I think you can come up with it. If the diagonals of a parallelogram are congruent, which one has congruent diagonals? A rectangle. And it is a rectangle. Okay, so still rhombuses and rectangles today, and then more specifically squares if we meet more of those situations. So look at these pictures. They give you information and they say, can you conclude it is a rhombus, a rectangle, or a square based on what you see? And then tell me why. So look at that letter A. They tell us with one diagonal that these 4 angles are congruent. Why? One pair of diagonals gets bisected, right? That's this one. A pair of opposite angles are bisected. So this would be a rhombus.
Don't throw it.
Because it has one pair
If you walk over here.
of opposite angles bisected. Okay? All right, letter B. Look at what they're telling you here. I want to know, is this a rhombus, a rectangle, or a square?
A rhombus.
Why do you think rhombus?
Because rhombus are the only ones that have like the little 90 in the middle.
The perpendicular. Okay, so this is a rhombus because of the perpendicular. What are these telling you?
Square.
Why square?
Oh wait.
Because they're all even.
Because they all
the sides are
line
even. They're all the same. So
Okay.
it's a square.
So here's the deal.
But they don't have the markings.
These markings, right? The blue markings tell us it's a rectangle because the diagonals are congruent. The red marking tells us it's a rhombus. If something is a rectangle and a rhombus, it's actually a
Square.
I was right the whole time.
Oh.
That's
Okay,
right.
so this is a square because it's got congruent diagonals and perpendicular diagonals.
Yeah, true.
Okay? Congruent and perpendicular diagonals.
Why does the fire station train here? Like, why do they like? They don't train. Well, I don't know. They play pickleball. Like, why do they like play games here?
Because they've asked if they can, and the school has said, yes, we would love to bless our
Can I go
service
play tennis with them?
workers.
Someone like has a heart attack while they're here.
Forrest, why do you need 2 tennis?
while they're
They have
here?
their walkie-talkies
Like-
by themselves.
like-
Someone on our campus or
No,
one
like
of
in
them?
general. Like
Well,
for Dylan's
I mean,
salon,
isn't that a
doesn't
beautiful,
have
like,
to.
they help us, we help them?
No, I mean like.
Oh, well, why, I mean, it's no different if they're here or if they're at their station. They still have to drive to the location.
It's like there, like can they just hop in their boots and pull that thing up and they're all
You
good?
like Ben playing tennis?
Yeah, I'm sure they have their stuff in the truck.
How do you suck still?
I know.
All right. C.
Go back a
Wait,
little.
wait, Forrest, when are you gonna
To
start
the-
having like tennis matches and stuff like that?
It's somewhere. I think it's like the beginning of February. This morning I saw
It's
Forrest
like
with his
February,
tennis
like,
rackets
10th,
all
I guess.
sticking out on the
Okay.
sides, and I thought
February
he had
10th.
katanas.
I want to go to one of your.
I'm gonna go to tennis match. I have before and I'm Texas. I love Forrest.
I know, tell me when you have a match. I'll come watch you.
Forrest,
I go
I'm waiting for it.
Are they right after school?
Oh, guys, exciting news.
Will you
I
remind me
did
though?
get
Because
off
I just don't
the
pay
air.
attention, so.
Sometimes you get out
That's
at,
a
like 6 in the
rectangle.
morning,
That's a
bro.
rectangle.
For what?
Like, if you have an amount,
How bad are you?
All right, letter C.
Oh, we're screwed.
Dakota's gonna tell us what this one is. Hey, sit and be quiet.
And Ryan literally did.
Wait,
Johan put our tennis.
You're still talking.
Tennis got hired as a business, now we have to play St. John's.
Yeah, they're playing golf.
Well,
For a
beat
golf
them.
course tennis team, they're probably.
All right, letter C, Dakota.
Probably not that good.
What is this?
It's really just their basketball. football.
Dakota says this is a rectangle. Do you agree?
I believe it is.
I was stuck.
Okay.
Whoa!
Tell- Tell me why.
I hate that.
She does
What
want to
did
say
he
that.
say? I
She was like, I'm gonna kill your
parents.
grandparents.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
gonna
yeah,
kill
yeah.
your
I know
dog.
that's a
Tell me why this is a rectangle.
Because it is.
So it doesn't.
Oh, really?
It has the.
No,
it
wait.
looks like a line. No, it
Yeah.
has the square. No, the line.
Oh,
The
you are wrong.
line. I don't know. The matrix is the line.
Opposite, I don't know.
So these are all 7,
Oh, is that a rock?
Yes, it is.
right? Which means all of these are congruent. Those are parts of what in this figure? What do you call these?
Lines.
Bisect. Angle bisect.
What kind of lines? They're the diagonals, right? And a rectangle has congruent diagonals. So because all of those are 7, it's 14 and 14 for your diagonals, so that is a rectangle. Okay, congruent diagonals. All right, letter D. They give you 1 marking, this little box.
That's a.
Rhombus.
That is a rhombus. Why a rhombus and not a square?
Because the angles are not the same.
The perpendicular.
They don't tell us anything about the diagonals. They don't tell us anything about the lengths of the sides, right? So we know it's a rhombus because it has perpendicular diagonals, but that's the only thing we know. So don't go assuming other things.
I love water.
This is a rhombus.
I hate water.
Okay?
I love water.
Mr. Hoop and my Apple Pen.
I like
doesn't
pineapple
work.
juice.
Growth behavior.
It's connecting, but it's not like writing. There's like something wrong with like.
Is it dead?
Is the tip
No, it's
screwed
not
on?
dead.
Do you have, is yours
No,
like
I
a,
do have it. I just like unscrewed it to like screw it back on and try to fix it. Like it's paired and everything. It says it's connected, but it just won't work.
is it charged?
Yeah.
Is it really dead? Oh, who's that person?
Is that person?
Well, you can turn it off and use
Is that
your
Pepperson?
finger to
That
write.
kind of looks like.
Yeah, it's just
Oh,
hard to
no,
write
no,
without
no,
like with my
Kansas.
fingers.
Yeah.
That doesn't like your sister.
I guess it.
Um,
No, actually, you have like a little limp. This is you.
Me?
in this,
Yeah.
How do I
That's
actually-
Yeah, you like wobble.
How do I watch?
That-
How do I
That's
watch?
just my bad ankle.
I want, okay,
That's
a
just
little
my
later,
PCO.
we're gonna have you give everyone's saunter. We're gonna see how everyone walks. Okay.
That's just my point.
Example 2. This says, in order for parallelogram ABCD to be a square, or in this case, a rectangle, what would the value of the variable have to be? So look at this picture. Okay, 90 degrees, and these are congruent in a parallelogram. We know opposites are congruent. Opposites are congruent. What has to be true of this angle if it's a square?
90.
Wait,
90.
say that again?
Okay. We know opposites are congruent, opposite sides are congruent in a square, and angles are right angles. But then they give you this 6x plus 6 right here. And Max just said, and he's correct, that angle has to be 90 degrees if it's going to be a square, right?
That is a
So if I want to solve for x, this is 6x plus 6. I need to set that 6x plus 6 equal to what?
equal to 9.
to 90, right? It has to be a right angle if it's going to be a square. So you set it equal to 90. How do you solve that?
-6.
Take away 6. So 6x equals 84, and then divide by 6. So x is 14. Did I do that right? 6 times 4 is 24. Yeah. Okay. Okay, look at this one. If this is going to be a rectangle, what do you know about the diagonals of a rectangle?
They're the same.
They're congruent, right? All of these are going to be the same in a rectangle. So how do you solve for y?
Say the equal.
You set them equal to each other. They have to be congruent. So 5y plus 3 would have to equal 7y minus 5. How do you solve for y?
+5.
You could add the 5. I'm going to take away the 5y first. But then, yes, we will add the... So you get 2y minus 5 equals 3. Then add the 5. So 8 equals 2y. And then divide by 2. So y would have to be 4. How could you check it?
You plug it in.
Plug it back in. If you plug a 4 in here, 5 times 4 is 20 plus 3 is 23. 7 times 4 is 28. 28 minus 5 is 23. So when they come out equal, then we know we did it right. Okay?
Who are you talking to?
Okay. I need to know if you have it within you right now to have 4 of you come up here and try something for me, or are we going to just
I volunteer
lose
tribute.
all things?
I volunteer.
Okay.